Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. So I believe it was like the day before yesterday that I posted my video inspired by the new Jackie Aina and Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. This is a combination of eyeshadows and pressed pigments within a palette, and it has been announced quite recently, and of course I'm very excited about it. So naturally I did that makeup look inspired by the shades within that palette. And I decided to also take the palette and redesign it to fit what I wanted. So this is something that I do on my channel a lot. This is nothing new. I just love redesigning makeup palettes. I think it's really fun. I think it's really interesting to provide an alternate opinion. And rather than just tell you my ideas and my I would say thoughts about a palette, about changing a palette up, I like to show you guys. I just want to provide my alternate opinion. So when I saw the palette, and I think I'll put the before palette here and the after palette here. Yes, that's what I'll do. When I saw when I saw this palette, I was like, wow, this is such a beautiful purple palette. It has some neutrals in there, it has some purples, it has some really interesting looking shades in there. I also watched Jackie Aina's video that she did showing this palette and showing all the shades, and it looked absolutely beautiful. But then I was thinking, I would have liked to see more purples in a purple palette. Does that make any sense? Because yes, this palette is so beautiful, and if you look at the swatches, I think you'll be blown away. But if you look at this palette right here, I made a few tweaks. I changed a few colors up to fit what I would want in a version of this Jackie Aina and Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. I will say that I did this redesign rather quickly, and then I actually watched her video in which she talked about the palette, and I watched it all the way through, and then I was like, wait, I need to scrap some of these new shades that I created because I felt like I was not creating a version of the palette that was truthful to what Jackie Aina wanted. This is basically what I had before I saw the video, and this is what I had when I saw it after. So you can see that there are definitely some changes that I made. The first shade that I actually wanted to scrap, but after I watched Jackie Aina's video, I ended up keeping, was Soleil. Now Soleil looks, when you just look at it in the palette, like your typical just mid-range, mid-tone brown. But if you actually use it on the eyes, apparently, as Jackie Aina did, it does appear to be a beautiful highlight color, and she created it with the intention of creating a highlight shade that would suit deeper skin tones without making those skin tones look ashy. So when you look at it in the pan, this shadow, in my opinion, looks really boring, which is why I didn't want to make it into that light frosty pink. But after watching that video, I decided to keep it the way it was because I think that this shade is essential for the palette. Moving on, I want to talk about Supreme. Now Supreme, I just left it the way it was. I saw it in action in Jackie's video, and I decided to keep it. Same thing with Pinker. I felt like it was a shade that would suit the Anastasia Beverly Hills customer as well as Jackie Aina's fan base, from what I can gather, because it is a shade that can work for neutral lovers and for color lovers, and it's kind of like one of those really fun in-between shadows. Next up, I want to talk about Big Wig. Now, Big Wig is yet another shadow that I left alone. I know it's very rare that I leave shadows alone in palettes. Usually that does not happen, and so far, all the shadows I left just the way they were. And usually, you guys know if you watch my channel, that doesn't happen. So there's really not much I can say about this palette that I would change, but this next color called Dualas, I would change. This is essentially like a greenish gold. I watched her video and Jackie said that she wanted to create a gold color that had more green in it. She didn't want like a typical bronzy gold. So this is like a gold color with a little bit more green in it. What I did is I just lightened it slightly and up to the saturation on it to make it a little bit more blingy. Next up is the color Credit. Now, I would change this color if it was my palette, but Jackie Aina loves her beautiful deep dark browns. I decided to keep this color because I felt like it was really imperative for the entire palette to keep the color there, because if I had removed that color, it would have essentially kind of compromised the entire, I would say, vibe of the palette. So I kept it in there. Then we have the color Lituation. Now Lituation, it looks very similar in both of these palettes, but I made a tiny, tiny tweak. I upped the pinks, I added some more blue, and I just upped the saturation just enough to still keep that beautiful metallic deepener quality to it, but I wanted to make it more of a purple, because before it was kind of like a basic sparkly, well, not sparkly, but it was a basic metallic brown, and I decided to make it like a slightly purpley brown. So it's kind of a purple, kind of a brown, definitely in between, but I felt like that would be a better alternative. Then we have the color Zam. Now, this color I changed completely. I added more pinks, I added a touch of blue. I just upped it to make it like a beautiful mid-tone, really just like a berry tone violet color. Love that. I love it. Because before we had like this sort of like brown color, and I'm sure it's a beautiful color. I think it's a beautiful color. I saw it in Jackie's video, but guys, if I was to change this palette, I would have changed that color and made it into the color that I have in front of you right now. Next up, we have the color Wigglies, which is a color that looks like a deep red in the pan, but interestingly enough, this color, when you actually put it on the skin, as Jackie did in her video, I'd highly recommend watching it, by the way, because a lot of the shades in this palette like actually don't look the same on the eyes. They're like duochromes, and they're all these like really fun effects. So if you're interested in any way, shape, or form in this palette, check out her video, because that had so much information and I'm so glad I watched it. But this color actually is like a really reddish orange. So in the pan it looks red, but it's actually like a really beautiful, like just metallic orange color. And so I decided to keep it. Next up, the color Shookington. I love that name. I decided to keep that color as well. I loved it. Then after that, the color Trust Issues. Now, by the way, I decided to keep it the way it was. I know, like I didn't really change a lot in this palette. Usually I do. I'm kind of surprised at myself, but there's really not much for me to alter. That's just the truth. But Trust Issues looks like your typical, like really just like white looking highlight color, which I love. You guys know this. I love like that frosty look. However, when you swatch it, it looks like a green color. And when Jackie swatched it, it was like this like really just like metallic looking greenish, yellowish color. It was like so interesting looking. I really liked it. Next up, the color Edges. Now, Edges originally was a very, very kind of like orangey transition color, and yes, I know everybody's nuts about their transition colors, and no, this is not the most boring transition color it could have been, but I just decided to just up the saturation of it a little bit, up the orange look of it, just really just up the saturation. Then the color next to that is Sponsored. Now, I actually felt like I wanted to make this color into a silver shade that had a little bit of a purple flip to it, because I felt like we have so many interesting notes of green, brown, and pink, and purple in this palette. I wanted to have a silver color that would just join so many of those color families together. So a silver, as many of you guys have probably experienced, does go pretty well with like a whole bunch of different colors. And I love using it in the inner corner. I just love using it all over the lid. It's a fun color to use. But I decided to make it like into a purple flip, so it would tie in with all of these lovely purple shades that we have in the palette. Next up is the color Ginger. Jackie definitely mentioned Ginger last, and I mean, obviously she loves this palette because she created it, and I think that she put a lot of love and effort into this palette, but I definitely felt like even she didn't necessarily have much to say about Ginger, because Ginger is a mid-tone, taupey, sandy, I'm making no sense, transition color. It's boring. what I decided to do, sorry, I can't even speak right now. What I decided to do is transform it into my beautiful, beautiful little mock-up fantasy purple color. I would love to have this shade in real life. That would be so great. If I could reach into my computer screen and pick up this palette and use it, I would. Okay? I would. But unfortunately, that's not possible. But like, I felt like ginger was like just, I transformed it into such like a beautiful purple color. And this like color is so nice because I feel like it would be gorgeous if you were somebody who loves color, and you could also maybe like try it out if you like neutrals as well, but like maybe are looking for something new. I gather that both Norvina and Jackie wanted to create a palette that was a little bit all-encompassing, and that is something that is quite difficult to do because of course everybody has their own preferences, and what ends up happening in these kinds of situations is that they usually include more neutral shadows, and me as a colorful makeup lover, I feel like there's not enough color in the palette to justify me purchasing it. Purple is a really easy color because it looks good on so many people, so I think that everybody tends to gravitate towards purple more rather than other colors in the makeup world. And I felt like this color would just be like a magnet for people who are color lovers. And yeah, I replaced a transition color, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure that everybody has some kind of version of that transition color in their collection already. You know what I mean? So I don't think this palette would be negatively affected in terms of design by the loss of a transition color and the addition of that like slightly neon looking purple color. So that is the end of my video and my redesign on the Jackie Aina and Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. On the whole, I have pretty positive opinions about this palette. I will, of course, mention it more in my Will I Buy It that I will post this Sunday, but on the whole, I think that this is a pretty great palette. I mean, as you saw, there's not much that that I wanted to change in here. I just upped the saturation in a few colors, and there were a few colors that I completely changed. But on the whole, I feel like the palette is a solid palette that is something that will satisfy a whole bunch of different people, a whole bunch of different customers and fans of Jackie Aina and Anastasia Beverly Hills. And I definitely am so happy that the recent collaborations that Anastasia Beverly Hills has done have been with people that I really respect and really admire, not just as people, but as artisans, or not artisans, that's the wrong term, but just as makeup lovers, and I think that's really great. So if you haven't seen my video inspired by this palette, in which I created a look inspired by specific shades in the palette, I'll put that in the cards. And I believe yesterday I also posted a little bit of a tutorial inspired by the new Jeffree Star and Morphe palette, so if you're interested in that, that is already up on my channel. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you like this palette? Do you not like it? Let me know your thoughts. Are you planning on getting this palette? I can think of a few people that I love watching who are going to get this palette most probably, and I cannot wait to see their reviews. But yes, with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye guys.